Okay, so let's get started. As you can see, we have the Europe here. We have Europe here. And we're gonna focus on an area first of all. If it comes to these missiles, let me show you the missiles first, what I found here today. Here we go. There we go. So here we got the missiles. Let me see if I can zoom in. Yeah, we can. So we have here the SSC-7 with 500 kilometers, the SSC-8 with 2,500 kilometers, and then we have the SSN-26 with 300 kilometers, and the SS-26 with 500 kilometers here. Those are the four which are of most interest to us. Now, these are the kilometer ranges are to be taken with a grain of salt, because depending upon the warhead, they will probably fly much further than the 500 kilometers. And here we can see Kaliningrad Oblast. And this would be here. And if you are a history buff, then you know that this is East Prussia. If our internet and Google will cooperate with us and get the picture refocused. Could be possible, could not be possible. Yeah, now it goes. You can see on how slow this all is here and how this moves. So here we can see now Lithuania, and this here used to be East Prussia, but this is Kaliningrad or Königsberg, and then we have Sovetsk here, which was Tilsit, the city of Tilsit. And now we know that the German Bundeswehr is establishing a new brigade in Lithuania, in the capital, which is over here in Vilnius. I'm not exactly sure where in Vilnius this is, but this is going to be around here. And now it gets interesting. This is called the Lithuanian Brigade. And here in Sovetsk, you just have to be patient with us here. There we go. The laptop was asleep here for a little while. This here is the town of Tilsit, which became the easternmost garrison city of the Kingdom of Prussia. And you can see this, we have the border right here through the river Nemunas, which is the Memel. Right in the middle, this is basically East Prussia here, or Kaliningrad, and this is already Lithuania. And the Prussian army in 1717 made this a garrison town, and they stationed the first Lithuanian Dragoon regiment there. And that was then later on renamed after my third great grandfather when they built the new barracks, which are still standing, have outlasted World War II. And this is this building here. You can see this Istorinis Princo Alberto, so this is Prince Albrecht. Livio Dragnu Pulko Dragnu, that means Dragoner Regiment. And Dragoner Regiment really is the cavalry. So, and you can see this here, pretty much this entire aerial, and that photo is from September 29th, 2021, so it's not that old. All of this was the garrison. I believe this building was built 1820, 1830 I'm not exactly sure. And we can click on this here, and then I will get to the details here. Now, again, this is all because of, let me see, I have to move this slightly over. Can we move this? No, of course not. That is too far, so I'm going to move the camera over. So this is what the front looks like. This is the hallway in there, and in this hallway here, they have these plaques, and they are all the battles that particular regiment participated in. Let me see if I can zoom into these pictures. Yeah, now we can see them better. Let me bring the camera back over here so we can see. Unfortunately, I cannot zoom into these pictures, but we will be able to see it. So they renovated this. The Russian Federation, the government, made this building a historical site, and it is therefore protected. Here you can see this. On the right, it reads 29th October 1762, Schlacht bei Freiberg. That was the battle at Freiberg, a city. That was the Schlesian Wars, I believe. And then the other one is from September 29, September 1762, Erstürmung der Schwammen bei Klingenberg. I cannot read this letter here exactly. That is, Schwammen, Schwatzen. I'm not quite sure what that means here. I can't read it too well because of the angle that is. Some of the letters they used in that typesetting, they have like a T and a Z. Thomas Zoo, for instance, and that would be Schatzen by Klingenberg. That is most likely what that is. So that was another one. So you have the entire thing going through there, and the Russian Federation restored this. They were, from what I've gathered, this is what that looks like it there on the outside around the building. I guess that must be the main entrance. And this is the train station they built. There was another one. That's, I guess, from across the street. This is the plaque where it shows it that is a historical site now. And here we can see from the fights of World War II. It was 1940, some soldier marked that. And this was a private first class Milzkal, resident 1910. He put his name in there. And other people have scribbled in here 1899 and that sort of stuff. And this is some of the artifacts, newspapers they found from back then. That is all dated around that time. This is what this looked like, I believe, during the Cold War when the Soviet Red Army was in that building. And this is what that looks like now. So somewhere in between there, they found these plaques in this building, and they kind of restored this. Now this was the first Lithuanian Dragoon regiment. I think that's how you say this. And this here is the Queen Louise. That is my fourth great grandmother viaduct. Königin Luisebrücke. That is the Queen Louise Bridge, basically, which is still there, and which is basically the customs the customs crossing point here between Lithuania and Tilsit or Sovetsk. So I just wanted to show you this. So the new Bundeswehr barracks are going to be here in Vilnius, which is over here. So if we take the ruler, we can take a look at this here. Let me put this in the middle here. I guess there it comes, Vilnius. It's about 220 kilometers east. northeast. Yeah, that would be to the east in this case. You could say this was the most northern point, northeastern point where the Prussian army had their barracks. This particular regiment was also stationed at times, or part of it. They had about 100 to 500 men, soldiers. It varied throughout the history from 1717 until 1919. And some of them were stationed here at Chernyakhovsk. And that is the city of Intersburg. And when we look here, we will see an airfield, and that will tell us a lot about the Russian strategy at the present. The picture is from, now it doesn't show this, it may show us this a little bit later. So we can see the airfield here. That is now Intersburg. And somewhere here in Intersburg, they also had a barrack here where they were stationed. And then that regiment was also stationed in Berlin at times and other parts. But this is really the focal point here, is this military installation. For one is to the left here, which would be north, east, west, south. Yeah, to the west of here, they have a railroad yard, and we can see this here with a fairly new building right here. And you can see this, they can go in here. They look like maintenance departments, but knowing that they're right next to an airfield and then connected with this road here, this road will go directly to the outer road here and to the actual airport tarmac here and their military buildings here. This is a pretty good sized compound, what they got here in terms of an Air Force installation. And we can see vehicles here parked. Now these images are according to Google from May 10th, 21 and newer. So they are pretty recent. And here we can see the type of vehicles they actually have parked here. And these are mobile launchers, I believe. I'm not an expert on Russian military equipment. And this is some form of radar equipment, antenna equipment here and here. So we can see this, and then we can see that they have a road going around it, and then you get here to a little creek, and there is another building here with fresh grass on it. We can see that this must be watered or maintained, where the rest of it is pretty much left to dry out during the dry months. But the other thing is here we can see the aircraft stationed. So this is an active military basis with a wide variety of aircraft. And this is one of their sites, most likely, when we look at the shape of this whole thing. We have buildings over here, which is not accessible for aircraft. They probably could get there. But this looks more like a installation from where they would be launching intercontinental ballistic missiles like these here, which I have shown you. Mostly this here. This is interesting. These here, primarily. This would be the SS-26, and then probably the SSC-7 and SSC-8s, most likely. And it is from this point here, from this military installation. I mean, there is more, but I'm going to explain this here in a second of why this is so important. We have Kaliningrad here, just to look at this. This is Königsberg. This is interesting too. The old castle in Königsberg was leveled after the war by the Soviets, and then they started to build the house of the Soviets, And that thing is now dilapidated. I'm not exactly sure where that is. I think it is somewhere around here. Yeah, here. Yeah, Königsberg Castle. You can see it right here. And this was this house of the Soviets they were building. And I think this has been demolished. So this is where the castle used to be. And that was the home base of the Order of the Teutonic Knights. That was their headquarters. And after 1945, when this was all lost, the Teutonic Knights moved to Vienna. We basically got rid of them. I think it was right around 1701 or before that. I forgot this now. When we dropped out of the Order of the Teutonic Knights, and when Prussia became a kingdom, they had moved from that castle. And this is the castle where my third great grandfather was born in, while his parents, my fourth great grandparents, were on living in exile there, while Napoleon had occupied Berlin and the Brandenburg area and other parts. And this here is the civilian airport of Königsberg, the aerodrome, what they're calling this. And here we can see that too, that they're also having some other military, or used to have military stuff here, but that is no longer the case. That is over in Insterburg. And this is basically the port. And this port is important for the Russian Navy because it is ice free for most of the year, this area here. I think you enter this. Yeah, exactly. This is where you come in. So this is basically where their military, where their navy is stationed, the Baltic Fleet. And this has such a great importance, this whole East Prussia, that they're still here. So all of this area here is basically military. You can see this here. This is where they have their warships stationed for the most part of it. You can see them here and here and here. All of this stuff here, this here and this here. And you can see how easily they can access this, and they're right in the Baltic, in the Danziger Bucht, Gdansk Bay, and they can go from there. Now, the Russians, this is the Baltic states here, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And one of these three countries, has approximately 50,000 Russians living there as an ethnic minority. We have in Poland Germans who are still there, down here at the area around Opole. I gotta find Opole real quick for you. Ostrava, Krakow, Katowice, Opole. Here is Opole, Opeln. This is basically Upper Silesia here, with Ratibor here. This is where there is still a German minority there, and the minority was oppressed. They didn't leave Poland, they weren't expelled, but they had to hide their German ethnicity. So they weren't allowed to speak German or have German schools. And now those people here, since Poland was liberated basically in 1990, they have now German schools here. They're living here with a special status as an ethnic minority. In this case was Germans. And this is a similar situation we have here. Now, the Bundeswehr assumes that the conflict between NATO and Russia, the Russian Federation, would basically start the same way as it started with the Ukraine. When we're looking over here, we have the areas here in the Donbass, Mariupol, in this area here, where they said that they had Russian minorities there or Russian citizens, and they weren't allowed to speak their language anymore and that sort of stuff. So this is one of the main arguments in this war with the Ukraine to begin with. And I don't think that these people are repressed right now, but the Russians could use this as an excuse and then infiltrate this. Now, Russia has only borders with Estland, Estonia, and Latvia. Lithuania, where the German Bundeswehr is going to be stationed at their new barracks. So again, this is Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania here. And here's Vilnius, the capital. This is where the Bundeswehr is going to establish their Lithuanian brigade. And this picture was actually taken at the with 5,000 men in for their birthday, I think the 105th birthday of the Lithuanian army. And these are German tanks, so yeah, that is kind of a rare picture. This is in Vilnius, if I'm not mistaken, where they took this picture, where their command center is going to be. And this is basically their timeline. The first batch of soldiers is already there. Basically, the command center is going to be established here. They established this last year. And now they're starting with the troop movements. And I think in 2026 or 2027, that's when the new barracks are going to be built over there for 5,000 people. 4,800 German soldiers and 200 civil employees for the Bundeswehr. Now, we can see this here, that this is Belarus. So Russia itself has only a border with Estonia and partially with Latvia. But the big border here, the long stretch, is all along Belarus. And as we know, is that Belarus is friendly to the Russian Federation. So the Russian Federation army or military is going to be probably stationed here. And we would see troop movements going from Russia, from here, over into this area here. And this is the border between Poland and Belarus. And the whole turning point in this is this. Now, these three countries are now members of NATO. So is Finland on the other side, which is this here. And you can see this, that if it does come to a conflict and they employ the same strategy what they did in the Ukraine, that they're bringing soldiers over into one of these countries wherever the Russian ethnic minority lives, and they're going to start the war from within. This is all right now supported by NATO. So there's NATO troops here. And the way the thing works basically is with American troops and British troops coming in is through the Netherlands to one of the ports here. Let me see, which one was that? I can't remember that here. It's not Brugge. Rotterdam. I think it is here in Den Haag, wherever they have Rotterdam. I think this is one of those ports where they would be landing. And they're basically traveling then through the interstate system, straight through the Netherlands, into Germany, basically going across here, Osnabrück, Bielefeld, Hanover, Brunswick, and then Brandenburg by Berlin, over Frankfurt on the Oder River, through Poland, and then they would have to turn. I think they would go this direction here. The motorway is going over Lodz, Warsaw up here, but I think there is probably a faster line here. This is all done by truck, and this is the current supply route for all NATO equipment moving in here because of the Russian Navy being stationed here in Kaliningrad, in Königsberg. And we can see here is everything what the Russian Federation sends over to Kaliningrad Oblast has to travel through Belarus and then either through Poland or through Lithuania. And I believe that the Russian Federation has a contract, an agreement with Lithuania, which allows them to use the roads and the railway lines going into Kaliningrad Oblast. So let's just say these people here are going to start with 10,000 green men like we had it in the Ukraine here in Lithuania to start a war internally. Then you would have the Bundeswehr with their 5,000 people basically getting immediately involved. And one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to cut off Kaliningrad Oblast. And if we take our ruler here, let me see when the thing comes on. Is this the ruler? Measure this one here, sorry. So if we say we go from here straight over here into Belarus, that's about right 100 kilometers. That would be in miles, about 65 miles, 60 miles, 65 miles. And this is going to be the main battlefield. So you have Polish or NATO troops on this side. You have NATO troops over here on this side. You're going to have Russians and Belarus troops over here. And you have Russian troops over here. And this is the nuclear base. Now we want to take a look at another distance just to give you an idea. We're going to go straight from the airfield here. Oops. Let me see. Let's just say we have our nuclear weapons here. And we're going to take this. And we go straight over to Berlin. And we will see that this is only about 350 miles. 380 miles. And that would be in kilometers, 600. Now the Russians say that these missiles have a 500 kilometer range or 300 kilometer range. The reality with this depends on how much of a payload you have on there. So if you had a smaller payload, you could use an SS-26, for instance. These are mostly air-launched missiles, but they also could be launched from the ground with appropriate equipment. So can this one here, the SSN-26. They're more universal than what the Russians have been telling us. So let's just say they're going to go with an SS-26, which has a 5 to 10 megaton nuclear warhead installed on it. The SS-26, the same as the SS-4s, these are all the NATO names or the NATO abbreviations for those. And the 9M723 Iskander is the Russian name. The P-800, 9M729, 9M728 is what the Russians call it, the Russian military. We call it by SS in the NATO terms. They fly at about 3,500 meters per second, any one of them. That's Mach 10. And if I can find the calculator, let's see if we have so much luck as finding a calculator. If it lets me. Oh, Windows. Let me see. Here's the calculator. Let me see if it's going to start on it. Yeah. Yep. Now we went only one calculator. You can see this is all a pretty tough going here with this stuff. just a simple thing as running a calculator becomes something bigger. I guess Microsoft doesn't want us to use their calculator for this. There it goes. My God, is this a tough going. All right, let's say we have about 610 kilometers and we're traveling at 3.5 kilometers per second. That means that the rocket with this nuclear ICBM is going to take 174 seconds. And we divide this by 60. Let's see what that yields. 2.9 minutes. So under 3 minutes it's going to take to launch a 5 kiloton warhead with a SS-26 from Intersburg here to Berlin. Let me see. From around here to here. And you can see Intersburg is pretty much in the middle, right here. Fairly protected. That's why that is right here in the center. That's where they have the nuclear weapons. They're probably going to have submarines which also carry nuclear warheads, but the main nuclear warheads are going to be located here right in Intersburg. And they're calling that. See, that is the bad thing, is you zoom in, but the letters don't get any bigger until now. Chernyakhovsk, from this airfield here. And if we're looking at this 3 minutes, say like if this is directed, if they really would give Berlin the run for their money, and we're targeting from there the Brandenburg Gate, which is here, right in the center, and you're going to have the Reichstag, the Bundestag is right here. If this detonates in this area here, the center of Berlin is basically gone. And if you had the Bundestag, for instance, in session with everyone present, so the chancellor would be there, all the cabinet members, and all the different parties for something important, if they would target this here, you wouldn't be able to give a warning to empty this building out, and that would eliminate pretty much the entire political leadership of Germany within 3 minutes after a launch. The whole thing looks even worse if we go from here's our airfield. If we go from the airfield in Intersburg down to Warsaw. Let me move this up here, which is not even 300 kilometers, 254. So we can take now a look and see the calculations here. Where do we reset this here? CE. 250 kilometers divided by 3.5, 71 seconds. So 1 minute and 11 seconds. And you would have the same outcome in Warsaw. So Berlin, Warsaw are the primary targets. They could send Prague, is all well within that range of that missile. Let me just show you this. We could go see, like, if this missile would fly 1,000 kilometers, which it probably can, you would be Amsterdam, Munich, not quite Vienna, but you would basically, any Budapest in Hungary, you would basically eliminate a lot of the stuff. If the thing could fly like 1,500 or 2,000 kilometers, then you basically have Paris and London, 1,500 kilometers, Paris and London from here. So this gives you an idea on how much of an issue And the reason why I'm making this video is because last year the Duma, at the request of Putin, changed their nuclear doctrine they had for nuclear weapons. And until last year, it was that way, that Russia would only respond with nuclear force if it was attacked by nuclear force. Now they can use nuclear force when they're attacked by conventional weapons. And this would be a worst case scenario. And the biggest battle we're going to see is going to be between here. So any troops trying to move in here from either around here this way to cut this corridor off. Like I said, this corridor is only about 60 miles or 100 kilometers here between the Kaliningrad Oblast and Belarus, the two important connections. So when you sever this here, then it's finished for the Russians to get to the port or to rearmor everything. But because of the nuclear weapons, that would be a very, very tricky situation. You would basically have to destroy the nuclear arsenal in Kaliningrad Oblast in East Prussia, which would then contaminate this entire area with nuclear fallout, even if you hit these missiles while they're still in their underground bunkers, if you were to set them off, because the explosions and the amount of nuclear warheads over there, and possibly chemical or biological warfare, biological weapons over there, could be quite catastrophic for this whole area and for Europe in general to deal with the fallout of the stuff. Let's just say the Russian Belarus troops here are successful in basically cutting off or occupying this territory here. Then all of the northern part, this here, would be then completely cut off. NATO would be cut off from their rearmament supply route through Poland and Germany, from here, from the Atlantic coast or from the North Sea, basically. The Russian Navy then could block basically the entire back here with the naval fleet, which is stationed in St. Petersburg. So that would cut off Helsinki, and you would not be able to bring any more weapons or rearmament material in for the existing NATO troops. You would have a gigantic sea battle here going on. You can see this. You probably could land material up here on the Norwegian coast if you can get in there. But that would be quite difficult, especially in the winter, as most of that freezes over, and then transport this through the entire length of Finland, and then put everything on a boat to resupply Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, if this was to come to this. But then you're going to be under a lot of fire here out of that border. At the same time, the Russian Federation has the border here with Finland. So this entire stretch here is going to be one of the main battlefronts. But what I think is going to happen is going to play out over here in the Black Sea rather than over here in this area. What we're probably going to see is a fight for this corridor. Both sides are going to try to either cut Russia off from the Kaliningrad Oblast to maintain their route, and then basically trying to eliminate all the Russian military out of the East Prussian territory, basically. I found it interesting, the deep state map. Let me see if it comes in. I guess Google manages it for you kindly. We have Kaliningrad Oblast here, which they have marked red. And it says East Prussia is temporarily occupied, annexed in 1946 in a result of World War II, area 15,105 square kilometers, or kilometers square, however you like to say it. And unfortunately, the deep state map, which primarily shows all the activity here on the front, the Ukrainian front here, does not tell us very much of what actually is stationed here in Belarus, except for some airfields, and they have virtually no information on this except of what I have shown you with Intersburg here, right in the middle of where the main problem is going to come from. But what I think is they're going to start the war here in one of these three states, with their green men moving in to support the Russian minorities because they're being oppressed. That's the most likely scenario. Then the big battle is going to ensue for this corridor here between Kaliningrad Oblast and Belarus for the support of this. That will be the big fight. And then on the other hand is the Ukrainians had given the Russian Navy, the Black Sea Fleet, a run from their money with attacking over here in Sevastopol on the Crimea. And they had to retreat further over here towards Sochi. In that area here is where the Navy is hiding out now because of the attacks by the Ukrainians with their unmanned sea drone vessels, what they have. There is, as far as I know, a agreement in place from 1919 as a result of World War I. I think it is 1919, but I could be wrong, which prohibits or allows only naval fleets to enter and be present in the Black Sea to the countries which are directly connected to the Black Sea: Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, and Georgia, and of course Russia. So from my understanding is this, that the American Navy has never entered these waters here in the Black Sea. Neither has the Bundeswehr been there, as far as I know, or any other country except for those. And this is where the whole problem is going to start. The Romanian Navy has currently 6,500 sailors, and the Bulgarian Navy is right around 3,500. So you have less than 10,000 naval soldiers here stationed, protecting this entire coastline here into Romania. And then Turkey doesn't have a much bigger fleet either. I think they have 10,000 or 20,000 sailors. So that compared to the Russian Navy here, I mean, the Ukrainian Navy is non-existent at the moment, except for these remote vessels, what they can launch. But if they were to start, the Russians would start their invasion across here at the point of least resistance into Romania, into Bulgaria. And then they would attack this here from Moldova, which is this area here, I think. Yeah, Moldova. Because this is where all the Russian troops are stationed at the moment. So they could break out here into this area, and they would then try to conquer Odessa up to Kherson and close this line off. And then they would move in Romania and Bulgaria, and they could then establish the sea route, the land route here, to move through Moldova into Romania, Hungary, Slovak, Austria, Croatia, Serbia. Of course, Croatia and Serbia, I think, are the two countries which are Russian-friendly at the moment. And this is one of the reasons why Viktor Orban has been so kind to the Russians, because they understand that this flank here is virtually unprotected. This is the interesting part in the Ukraine war. Even though they're heavily reliant on us, they have come up with some really interesting weapons, with technology, with these remotely operated drones, sea drones, where they sunk and damaged quite a few of the Russian Navy vessels. That could be a huge protector or strategy for Romania and Bulgaria to protect their coastlines. But this is going to be it. It's going to start up here, and then you're going to wind up with a two-front war, which I do not know if the Russian Federation can sustain this for any prolonged period of time, but this is how that most likely would play out, with the big threat of this becoming nuclear because of the nuclear weapons stationed in Kaliningrad Oblast, East Prussia, or Preußen, Ostpreußen in German. This is what I can see here. So this is why this is such a difficult thing to figure out, and I'm glad that I don't have to develop the strategy or counter strategy for it on how to defend this. Because the joker in this is these short, medium range ICBMs they have stationed here in Intersburg. But like I said, is if you take Intersburg out, if you would like do a preemptive strike and you would basically nuke Intersburg, you're going to have a massive nuclear fallout over this relatively small area, with radiation and everything what comes with it. That may work, this may not work. These are horrible scenarios to think about it because of the amount of people which would be killed in this. But it could be possible that if the little green men strike, that you have virtually no other option but to do a preemptive nuclear attack on Kaliningrad Oblast to eliminate all the military out of here to keep that corridor open. And of course, that would most likely create a response from the Russian Federation with a nuclear, or would create a nuclear response. So this is a very, very tricky situation. And if the Russian Federation is able to close this corridor off, and they're going to attack Finland up here in this area, basically clear across the country here, and they cut this part off from the coastal lines up here, and they do a sea blockade from the Russian fleet here in St. Petersburg and in Königsberg, then this whole Finland and Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania are basically cut off. And that would be your Stalingrad on steroids, on super steroids, because of the amount of people and everything else. Sure, they probably could able to live for a while because of you can do probably some agricultural activities there, but on the other hand is militarily this is going to be very difficult to maintain this through this little corridor here primarily. At the moment they can do it by sea, and they can come through here, and the Russians going this way. So we're going this way with military equipment, the Russians are going this way, and they can come from St. Petersburg to the port and vice versa. And we can go into the ports with our NATO vessels and that sort of stuff. But in a wartime, all of this would change in a heartbeat. This is what I would, that is the most likely scenario. And then the attack on the weakest flank here in Romania. I think they're building airfields here for NATO fighter jets to be stationed there, rather than increasing the NATO and violating international treaties with the limits on the Black Sea, naval vessels on who can get actually in there and who cannot. They're going to try to do this from the air to support this, to repel the Russian Black Sea Navy, basically fleet, out of this area there. But this sure is all pretty grim if you think about it, of what we used to look like. It sure is very far removed from the time when my third great-grandfather went up here. The regiment was named after him. I think it was around 1830s. And he was the honorary commander, basically. He had 4 or 5 different regiments, which he was an honorary commander of, and that's why he traveled there at least once a year, and that was usually on the birthday of the regiment, when they have the regiment day. That was the founding day when that regiment was started, and they celebrated this. And then, you have functions when a war was won, when a peace was lost, or however you want to call it. They would celebrate there in these barracks here. This place also had a castle at one point. I'm not quite sure where, but we didn't own that castle. From my understanding is this, that my third great-grandfather, and then from 1896 on, my second great-grandfather became the honorary commander of this regiment until 1906, when he passed away for a few years. But we are long ways from this, where that was once at the time. I thought I'm going to share this. I hope you found this video interesting and it is not too long. And I will be back with more stuff to come, and I wish you a good evening and a great week.